Awesome. So if you're in this training, that means you are in an interactive session. For interactive sessions, you would be a facilitator instead of a moderator. So facilitators, assistant facilitators should be here in this session, and also any speakers belonging to an interactive session should be here for this training. Let's get started. So first we're gonna go through some session prep, and then we will deep dive into what to do on site. Start session prep. First, everyone should be in the speaker portal by now. You should be able to log in. If you haven't logged in, I highly recommend doing so. All of your session information is there. So you'll have an interactive session agenda with some engagement activity. So your engagement activity this year is just going to be in your description area. And then the agenda will have your presentation time. So if you're in a facilitated discussion, you may have a 15 to 20-minute presentation time. It'll be followed by 10 to 15 minutes of discussion, which is why you may see a gap in your agenda. And that engagement activity will be in your description. So depending on what kind of engagement activity you have, and we'll go over the engagement activities in just a second, your presentation time may be different. But I want speakers to keep an open mind. So, for example, in this facilitated discussion, you have 15 to 20 minutes, however much time your agenda says for you, for your PowerPoint presentation. The remaining 10 to 15 minutes and that gap before the next speaker is also your time, but it will be used for discussion or whatever activity your session calls for. So we've got 5 types of activities here. So you should find it in your session description. At the bottom of your session description, you'll see either you're a panel, facilitated discussion, conversations and input, case study analysis, or knowledge development forum. The description will also provide what you do with this activity. We're going to go in more detail on each activity, but I highly recommend going into the speaker portal, looking at your full agenda for your session and what your session description calls for your engagement activity. So first up, we're going to discuss panel discussions. So if you're a panel speaker, you probably see you have 5 to 10 minutes for your presentation. That's for your slides. You have 5 to 10 minutes. And then the remainder of the session will be 30 to 60 minutes of speaker audience discussion. Panels are supposed to be more of an open conversation with the audience, and the audience is also contributing their knowledge, adding on to what the panelists have previously discussed. So different from the other engagement activities, panel discussions will have speaker presentations back to back to back. So that final part of the session, that panel will be open and consistent. So the audience will be able to communicate with all of the speakers at the same time. So as speakers, as facilitators, these are going to be your responsibilities for your panel discussion in order to prep for them. You want to prepare discussion points for speakers and participants. So what topics are your speakers talking about? What discussion points can we go more in depth into? So you want your presentation to be a teaser. It's 5 to 10 minutes, TED Talk style. You want it to be a teaser, and you want to work together with your session team, so all the speakers and facilitators, to develop those discussion points that you and the audience can deep dive into. To always engaging participants who are more vocal to sit towards the front. So maybe this is a task for your facilitator, an announcement as people are coming in. If you'd like to be more engaged, come and sit towards the front. And then inviting participants to bring their own relevant experience. As you know, for those of you who have attended WEFTEC or any conference really, we're engaging with adult learners. So they have their own experience. Some of them have 10 plus, 20 plus years of experience that they can add to the discussion. So you want to make sure you're inviting people to add on to the discussion while you're in this panel. And then lastly, ask speakers to engage not only with each other, but with the participants as well. So, remember in a panel, speaker presentations are back to back. You guys have 30 to 60 minutes to not only engage with the speakers or the audience, but engage with your other speakers, asking the audience questions, asking your fellow speakers questions. It's a team effort. So we want to make sure that you're communicating not just one way, but communication is going all around the room during a panel discussion. Then we have facilitated discussion. This is the most common interactive session type. So a lot of you will see that your sessions are facilitated discussion sessions. So in a facilitated discussion, as a speaker, you have 30 minutes. However, 15 to 20 are for your PowerPoint and 10 to 15 will be for audience discussion. So those 15 minutes still belong to you, but you play a part with working with your facilitator to create discussion for those last 15 minutes of your time. So number one, work with each speaker to prepare their discussion points and topics for participants. So speakers, as I mentioned, team up with your facilitator. We're coming up with some discussion points. It can be 2 to 3 discussion points that you want to bring forward to the audience. Encourage participants to sit more towards the front if they're vocal, inviting participants to bring their own experience, and reminding other session speakers to chime in and move the discussion forward. So a lot of these points are going to be the same because the goal here is to drive engagement with the audience, like via the speaker themselves, via other speakers in the session, via the facilitators. We all want to be working together to drive forward that discussion and really focus on here in that facilitated discussion. Number one, prepping some discussion topics. And number 4, other speakers chiming in to move the discussion forward, especially if you notice your audience may not be as vocal. You have other speakers in the session to support you. Start some discussion points there. Next, we have conversations and input. This is similar to facilitated discussion, but almost the inverse of it. So you've got 20 minutes for your PowerPoint, your presentation time, and then you have 10 minutes for the audience conversation. The difference here is it's going to be a flip on a traditional Q&A period. So in conversation and input, the goal is for the speakers to ask the audience questions, and the audience will share their knowledge and experience themselves. So similar points here. First one being speakers should prepare 2 to 3 questions for the audience. Facilitators should prep answers. You don't want to use your answers, but we're prepping answers just to spark conversations if the participants are not active. So work together with your speakers, work together with your facilitators to prep some questions and answers to be used if the audience is not providing their own experience as answers. Number 3, speakers share your contact information. So because we're flipping the dynamic here and the audience is not getting to ask questions, we always encourage speakers who are in conversation input, if you're comfortable, share your own contact information and the audience can kind of audit questions, give you questions that way if they have super pressing questions that they want to ask you. Lastly, encourage question by presenting thought-provoking questions. So we don't want these questions to be yes or no. They need to be open-ended questions, something that speakers will need to think about for a little, or not speakers, sorry, the audience will need to think about before they answer the question. So no yes or no questions here. We want to make sure all of these questions prompt discussion. So maybe a question that doesn't have one solid answer, something that could have multiple answers depending on, for example, the size of the utility, or different things like that, like what region or area the utility is in. There's just examples, but a question that multiple people can provide different answers to, and we prompt discussion for us to come up with a solution together. Fourth one is a case study analysis. This one is going to be 20-minute speaker presentations, 10-minute audience group analysis, and report out. So here, you got 20 minutes for your presentation. Typically in this format, a speaker would present a case study, their own experience, and then the audience will have 10 minutes. The facilitator will split them up into groups. It can be work with a person next to you, or it can be create groups of 5, or this half of the room and this half of a room. However you prefer to set it up, what works best with the session that you're in. And after that 10 minutes where they really get to talk to each other, the audience is engaging with each other. Speakers are welcome to join the different groups as well, but you'll get a report out from 1 to 2 groups. It's 10 minutes. It's really quick. So maybe a good way to split it is like 7 minutes for discussion, 3 minutes for a quick report out from 1 group or 2 groups. So number 1, of course, speakers should prepare some questions for a discussion points for people to discuss in that group analysis point. So maybe after your presentation, have a slide, final slide with some questions or some points you want them to discuss in their groups. 2, encouraging participants to sit near each other to form small groups at the beginning of the session. So, as an icebreaker, say like, hey, we're going to be working in groups today. So find a buddy next to you. Team up with 2 or 3 people that you like to be in a group with today. Number 3, speakers should be willing to join the discussion groups, even if it's not your own presentation time. So it's okay for other speakers to mingle with the groups, help get conversation going, help people feel comfortable with talking to each other by joining that group and maybe starting off with a thought-provoking question or a statement. This is where that prep time ahead of time is going to come in handy, because you've met with all of the speakers, you've met with your session, so you all can work together to come up with some questions, discussion points that you can use to spark conversation during the analysis time. And lastly, encourage participants to share their own professional experiences and knowledge. So we want them talking about the case study that was presented, obviously, but we want them to apply their own knowledge to that situation. Lastly, we have the Knowledge Development Forum, also known as a KDF. So you have 10-minute presentations, another quick TED Talk style, and 20 minutes of discussion. So similar, but not really to the panel. You've got more discussion time, so they're similar that way. But in the KDF, what's important is for there to be instigators mixed in through the room to help promote and drive discussion forward. So they want to keep, for example, I would say the instigator is that person that keeps asking why. So if the speaker says something, they're like, okay, but why did you make that decision? Why? They're driving conversation forward by continuing to ask questions. So the instigators are there to help, but we want the audience to get comfortable with asking the speaker those questions as well. If you're in a KDF, typically your facilitator will work to find who these instigators are, or they may be the instigators themselves. It's up to the session to decide how you want to sort that. Most important here, in a KDF is you want to encourage more discussion time. Even if a presentation may be cut a little bit shorter, we want to prioritize discussion in a KDF. Facilitators and instigators should work with speakers to develop conversation, sparking comments, questions. Again, working together to prep ahead of time so that we can promote discussion, promote asking thought-provoking questions, not yes or no questions. Number three, based on number one, a speaker may not finish their presentation, and not everyone may be able to ask that question in this type of session. So provide your contact information for the audience members who may want to ask you questions after the fact. And lastly, most importantly, encourage participants to share their professional experiences and knowledge. Okay, so those are the session types. I'm going to do a quick pause here for questions. Just in case, I'll go back to the page that has all of the types on there. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand now. I know that was a lot of information with all of the different session engagement activity types. So feel free to ask questions. You can take a short 5 minutes here for questions. I see Ken in the chat. Ken, just shoot us an email. We can help you get into the portal.
Mine says interactive session. Where would that fall under?
Have you had an opportunity to look at your session description at all?
Yeah, it just says interactive. I don't know whether I mean, it could be case study because that's what I'm thinking.
Okay, so I would go to your agenda. So this might answer your question too. Someone has a similar question. So in the speaker portal, and I can probably show you guys after, but in the speaker portal, when you go down and you have that box with your session in there, and it has your presentation title and your session title, when you click on your session title, it opens up your full agenda and it will have the description and it'll say what type of engagement activity you have to. So make sure when you look at that blocks, you look at that block with your session information, like what day, what time, make sure to click on your session title. That's where all of your information is. So that's clickable. Make sure you click on it. It'll open up a like pop-up and you can print or PDF that page as well. So you have it on hand. Okay. Are there any other questions before we move on?
Yeah, sorry, I have the same question because mine says interactive technical session as well. And when I click on the title of our topic, I'm not seeing any of those words, panel discussion, facilitated discussion, anything like that. It just says interactive technical session.
Do you see the paragraph with your description? It should be at the bottom. It's in your description. So at the bottom of the description, does it say?
On mine, it's right above learning objectives.
Yeah.
But when mine says this is a panel discussion, it will not have traditional. Instead, it works this way. So it's like the second paragraph of the entire thing, right above learning objectives, tells you which kind it is.
Yes, it's part of the session description. So there won't be, like, your session block says interactive. It won't be there. It's actually part of your session description.
Which for me, if I couldn't find it at first, but it's when you click the presented during link, not the presentation title. I was looking in the wrong spot.
Oh yeah, sorry. If you're a presentation speaker rather than a facilitator, it'll be under your session title is presented during. It's just worded weirdly, but moderators, it'll probably say like session title, or sorry, facilitators, it'll say session title. If you're a speaker, it'll say presented during, which is your session title. Click on that.
Okay, I found it now. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Okay, let's move on to on-site and what that's going to look like for your interactive session. So first thing first, when you get on-site, you should have met by now. Our recommendation is for interactive sessions to meet as a group 2 to 3 times before WEFTEC. But please make sure to ask speakers the proper pronunciation of their names. You don't want to get up there and mispronounce someone's name and then they start speaking and they say their name and it's completely different than how you pronounced it. So make sure you learn how to say your speakers' names, practice saying it. And then we will provide speaker bios. As long as the speakers have uploaded their bios to the speaker portal, we will provide them to you in your facilitator folder. So facilitators, make sure you read the speaker bio to introduce your session participants. For the sake of time, and especially in interactive sessions, you want to do 1 to 2 lines. Sometimes bios can be really, really long, and we want to make sure that we are keeping an eye on the time. Okay. Participant warm-up. This is going to be really important. So as participants enter, you want to start getting them warmed up for the conversation, asking, hey, what's your name? Where are you from? Encouraging them to fill empty seats towards the front of the room. You know, you don't have to ask them like any deep in-depth life-changing questions, but just start talking to them so that they're already comfortable with the idea that they'll be talking during this session. And then once the session begins, make sure to do a welcome to everyone and let them know at the top of the session, before the first speaker even goes, before you introduce the first speaker, what kind of session it is. They'll be able to see it in the mobile app on the session description the same way you see it, but just reiterate, this is this kind of session. This is how it's going to go today. So if we have a facilitated discussion, this is a facilitated discussion. Speakers will have 15 minutes to present, and then there will be discussion with the audience after each presentation. Just as simple as that, just a preface to what they will be doing today. And most people know when they're going, they know when they're going to an interactive session. They know if they don't want to participate at all, they just want to watch, they'll go to the back of the room. But you can also make that announcement like, hey, if you want to be more vocal and want to participate more, you can come up to the front. If you want to be more quiet today, feel free to sit in the back. Some best practices. Call on participants you are not familiar with first, not the experts. So if you know someone who is coming to the session, they come to WEFTEC every single year and like you're friends with them, great to have them into the session for moral support, but we want to make sure that we're engaging everyone. So let's try not to call on the same people is the point of this. You want to view the participants as potential experts. Again, we're having a session for adult learners. They have a lot of knowledge that they can share as well. So we don't want to assume that everyone is coming in with a blank slate. Most adult learners are not coming in with a blank slate. For example, if you take yourselves, if you were to attend a session, you're most of the time not attending, not having any information or knowledge on the topic at all. So we want to make the assumption that they have some information and they could possibly be an expert on the topic sitting in the room with you. Always repeat questions into the microphone. So a lot of times in interactive sessions, there's a lot of movement around the room, but it might not be as easy to move the microphone around the room. So if you have someone who is that person who says, oh, I'm loud, I don't need a microphone, that's fine, but we do have people who attend who may be hard of hearing or or even deaf. So make sure that you repeat questions into the microphone, especially for those in the back of the room too. They can't always hear someone just because their voice is loud. It may not project through the entire room. So you want to repeat questions into the microphone before you answer them. This is for the speaker and the facilitators. Always repeat a question before you answer it if that question was not presented through the microphone. Lastly, the rooms are going to be in theater style seating. So you can feel comfortable asking participants to move around the room and form different groups. This is going to be especially important in that case study analysis type of engagement activity. It's okay for people to move chairs, move around the room a little bit. You can tell people that it's okay to do that, make them okay and comfortable moving around. So troubleshooting. So we may sometimes have long-winded speakers or participants. Even moderators or facilitators can get long-winded sometimes. You just lose track of time while you're talking. So as a team with your session, form some pre-established signals. If they take a breath, jump in and redirect, or approach the podium if all else fails. This goes for the mic stand as well. So if you have an audience member who's commenting or asking a question and it just seems like they're starting to take over, feel free to approach the mic. Or if we have a speaker answering a question, but the answer is much longer than they originally intended, you should have some pre-established signals that give them a warning like, hey, this is running long, or feel free to just approach your speaker. And as you guys meet before WEFTEC, you'll be more comfortable with your fellow speakers and facilitators. And then lastly, just some suggestions. So, excuse me, can you move on to your question? If you've got a speaker who says they have a question, or not a speaker, sorry, audience member says they have a question, but it's starting with this long anecdote, you can just say, excuse me, can you move on to your question? What is the question? We agreed on one question. As a facilitator, and I know it may sound rude, but promise that the people in the room will be grateful for you if you do use these kind of questions or prompts to move the session forward. Another troubleshooting, if you have hostile statements or just negative comments, you can say, thank you, I appreciate your perspective. Let's talk about that afterwards. Are you going to talk about it afterwards? Probably not, but you want to redirect the conversation in a more positive direction. And then another one, this sounds more like a discussion, follow up with the speaker after. So again, if like someone asks a question, we realize it's going to take way longer to answer that question than we originally intended. This sounds like a discussion. Speakers are going to share their contact information. Let's follow up after. And again, it may be awkward, it may be considered a little rude, but other people in the room are definitely going to be in agreement with you, especially that person who's waiting for their opportunity to ask their question and has been waiting for 5 minutes. This slide is going to be on dealing with theater seating. So sometimes, especially if we have like a case study analysis and we don't have people naturally split up into groups, it may be a little awkward to try and facilitate discussion. So we want to let you know a little bit behind the reasoning of why we do this. So we want as many people to fit into the session rooms as possible. You know, people paid for their full conference, so we want to make sure we get as many people in the room as we can so they can experience the session as well. As speakers, you'll appreciate this too. We don't want a half-filled room. We want more people to engage with. That makes that facilitated discussion moment easier, or that panel discussion easier. So sessions will all have theater seating, but this is where we're telling you to be comfortable with telling people, go ahead and turn your chairs around. It's okay. We can put the chair back, but it's okay during the session. Turn your chair around. Be comfortable with talking to people around you, facing a different direction, or we can get up and stand up and move our group away from the rest of the people. It's okay to move about the room. That session room is yours for 90 minutes. So even if it's in theater seating, you can do what you need to do to get that discussion going in that time. But a key note is that the seating is set for maximum capacity. So standing in the aisles and along walls is not allowed at all. We've had a fire marshal come and end a session preemptively because there were people in aisles. So we want to make sure all participants are seated. And so during those discussion breaks, it's okay to get up. But what we mean when we say seated is we don't want people, all the seats to be filled, and then we have people in the aisleways or standing along the walls to be inside of the room. That is what's prohibited. All walkways, all aisleways, that space around the room on the outside of the seats, all of that is considered emergency aisles. So we're going to have to fill that room up till the seats are full. When the seats are all full, that room closes. As a moderator too, that is going to be one of your things to watch out for at the beginning of that session before the room monitor closes that door. Like, hey, please make sure you're seated before we start the session. We have to make sure the room isn't over maximum capacity before we get started. And most people who have been attending for a long time are aware of this. But on those side aisles, by the walls, the walkway in the middle, the aisles behind the seats, those need to be clear. Lastly, tips for how to successfully engage participants and theater seating are shared with each activity. So these slides are going to be available after this. Go through the slides. And then we also, inside the speaker portal, as you've seen at the top, where all of your downloadables are, the interactive session guidance document is downloadable there in the speaker portal for you. And it has a breakdown of every session type as well. Last note here. Speakers, facilitators, moderators, if you work together with your session and you all decide you'd like postcards, index, or handouts, WEF can print the handouts for you. We can provide index cards. We can provide Post-it notes. However, we do have to ship them for Chicago. So you need to let us know before August 1st so we can order and print everything to provide for your session. So if you have, a lot of times a case study analysis will do this. They'll have a handout with a case study on it for people to discuss when it's time for that discussion breakout time. Facilitated discussions will use like Post-it notes, and like you can write your thought on a Post-it note, and during the report out, the facilitator just has to read a few Post-it notes. Things like that. If you'd like those for your session, we can provide them for you. You just need to let us know by August 1st so we can order and ship the materials and they arrive in Chicago on time. And you can pick them up when you check in the speaker prep room on site. So we do provide those things, but make sure that you let us know by August 1st, or after that point, we can't make any changes because of shipment deadlines and stuff, and shipment deadlines, printing deadlines, things like that. So please, please, please make sure if you meet with your group and you're like, oh, this would be fun, make sure you let us know. And if it's any materials outside of this, just email us and we can let you know if we're able to provide that or not. Okay, so that is the end of the slides. I'm going to open it up for questions. I do see a few in the chat. Give me 1 second. Can you email the slides? Yes, so the slides will be available on weftec.org and the recording of this as well. Did maybe I didn't record. We do have a recording from last year, similar information. I think I'm recording, so it should be available. I am recording. Sorry, guys. I'm recording, so the recording and the slides will be available on weftec.org. We'll send out the link to the page that they'll be on before the end of this week. Will facilitators reach out to the speakers about meeting prior to WEFTEC? Yes, facilitators, that is your responsibility at this point to reach out to your speakers, meet with them prior to WEFTEC. Try to do like a doodle poll, send it to all of your speakers. When will you be available? Let's all meet and discuss. We recommend meeting 2 to 3 times prior. We've had some moderators, facilitators in the past that say that prior meeting before WEFTEC was extremely helpful and made the session run really smoothly. Oh, and yes, John Willis also responded. So yes, there's another recommendation. Please meet with your speakers before WEFTEC. I know sometimes we may feel like, oh, we can wing it. It's just open discussion, but being prepared always, always helps, especially with like some of these recommendations in the slides, prepping some discussion points if the audience isn't opening up automatically. Like some prep can help you gauge that discussion, prompt some more discussion. Okay. Do we have any more questions? Feel free to raise your hand. Okay. I'm not seeing any hands raised. If you think of a question later, feel free to email us, speakers@wef.org. It does take us some time to respond, but we do respond as soon as possible. So if you're not getting a response immediately, that's okay. That's normal. We'll respond as soon as we can. But that's all. I'll give you guys about 20 minutes back in your day. Thank you all for joining.